I
So I'm
thought you wore
grateful.
it very well.
Well,
And as
thank you,
I was
thank you, thank
getting,
you.
I drove up in my driveway and I thought, if this dude's going to wear some cheetah or some leopard, I'm pulling out my silver and my pearls and my pearls.
Oh,
And you're
really?
wearing pink.
Wow.
Are you wearing pink right now? I love pink on men.
Yeah, see, I'm pretty easy right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
will say that you look amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And so do you. You ladies
Thank
look amazing as well.
All right. So I want to start off with a phrase that I heard you use. I listened to a couple of your podcasts. And I also listened to you do a talk. You were in some auditorium or something. Was that your wife? Is her name Beige? Am I saying that right?
Beige like the color, but B-A-J-E, spelled different. Yes,
And
beige.
she was wearing leopard.
Yes, absolutely. That was an event I think that we had in North Carolina. Yeah, it's a few thousand people that was there.
I think it was in Charlotte.
Yes, absolutely.
I used to work in real estate development. I was vice president of a company called the Bissell Companies, and they sold it a few years ago for over $1 billion. One of the highest sold, I would call it a locally owned business. And what we did is we worked with General Motors, Nucor Steel. So around South Park Mall in Charlotte, we brought all those clients in and brought them in to do their corporate headquarters. So I have a long-standing affiliation with Charlotte. Where were you for that meeting?
I think we were at the convention center over there. I forgot the hotel that hosts the convention center, but that's where we were.
Well, I really like that. So I'm going to start off with something you said there, and I wrote it down. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Hey, listen, ready as I can be.
All right, let's go. Let's go. Prayer without action.
Yes, that's very important. That's very important. I mean, the thing about that is you can't pray and then expect things to just happen. And I think for too long, we've been led in a way to say, just pray, 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 pray. And people are like, well, I'm in church every Sunday. I love the Lord, but I pray, and what's been happening? Well, see, the prayer is just the part of your desire. You've been desiring this thing. You've conceived this concept of what you want in your life. And so you prayed about it. But now, because you prayed about it, it's not just going to come to you. You know what I mean? It's not like the Most High is going to come down and say, hey, I'm going to move this thing into your space for you. You have to create an action, right? So that action must go out. And then that thing that you seek, that's what he does best. He's going to put it in place for you because you're actually creating an action behind that prayer. And then he opens those doors as you move through. Make sense?
It does, but I want to dig into that a little bit more, because a lot of us on this call, I know that in my people have the perception that we're rich, but let me tell you, we have struggled financially just like anybody else. We do them better. We have a staff we have to take care of, we have materials we have to order, shows we have to. And so there are many times at the end of the month, I feel a little sick to my stomach. And anyone that doesn't profess that they have some financial struggles, I mean, they're just lying. They're just lying. They're not telling the truth. They don't want to share that they're having issues. And everybody, I remember when Tony and I were talking, Robbins, and we were talking about me starting this franchise business with him a long time ago. And I remember Tony saying, the one thing I can't do, Lael, is reproduce myself. Even back then, Tony was having issues. He wanted to go to and buy property. So everybody has financial issues that they deal with. So I wanted to ask you this, Mr. Boston. I don't like it when people say God will provide. I am in agreement with you in that you to do something. So let's just say that you were married, I'm happily married, and I have many properties, but even that, I got taxes I still owe on some stuff. So many women who are single, they go through that fear of, oh my God, I'm totally dependent on self. How am I going to create financial abundance so that I can have more than enough to live the life that I want? What is the fastest way for someone to move into financial abundance?
Okay, you went in and out a little bit. So if you don't mind repeating the last part
Sure.
for me.
What is the fastest way for a single woman to move into financial abundance? Let's say they've got fear, they've got procrastination, they have rumination, they have lack of action because they're afraid. What can they do to move into financial abundance as fast as possible?
Well, I don't really think the question that you're asking, I don't really think it's geared to just women, but because I think it's it's a vast question in regards to having fear and being concerned about your finances and trying to get to where you need to get to, right? So I don't really think it's a question just for women, but I think it's a vast question for everyone, whether it's a single woman or single man. And we have these issues, and these issues are in front of all of us, right? So when you start saying the fastest way, I'm big on things will happen, but I don't believe in when you say the fastest way, a person say the fastest way, because there must be a process in everything that we do, right? There will be a process. We don't have to like it, but there will be, because there's laws, and the laws, these laws exist, right? You know, you got the law of gratitude. You got the law of if you throw something up, right? You think about it, right? If you throw something up, it comes back down, correct? You know what I mean? We know the karmic law, what goes around comes around, right? We're in a universe that is created for us and us for it. So there will be a process in time. So with that being said, I wanted to make sure that is said so we understand when we're talking about expediency, right? But for an individual to look and say, well, what can I do to really, gain a headway, right? For one, it is perfect when a person is young enough to actually take the risk that they need to. But let's just say that person is middle age. It doesn't matter. I think everyone should do just a few things. And there's a few steps that I think everyone can actually take. One, a business. I think people should really look into, well, I need to start a business. And the concept that holds most of us back is that we always look at people of wealth and we think that they just gain this wealth without any sweat and blood and tears or whatever. We just think, oh, they just got it that way. But what people don't realize is that those people that are successful, they had to put in a lot of work to get to where they are, because creating a major organization takes a lot of time and effort, if you agree with me, right? And so I think a business is a really quick and it's a fast way to go, but it has work behind it, right? One of the next thing I think someone should jump into is real estate, right? You talked about owning properties. Real estate is a great avenue for someone to jump into. Now, the thing about real estate, though, is that real estate, a lot of the times, most of us, we probably have the 9 to 5 and we don't have the time or the capital. So, in real estate, one of the greatest things you can do is leverage OPM, other people's money. So then you might want to say, okay, well, let me come to Shirley and Pam and Stefan and borrow money from them. Or how is my credit looking, to then acquire funds to then purchase an investment property, right? It's one of the fastest ways if you're going to say, okay, I'm going to step into a place where I can change my situation. But these two ways, talking about business and real estate, they still require work, right? There's still going to be a working process with the two, but you can acquire that property. Then you can have that passive income from that property where after it pays for itself and whatever bills, you got some money left over, where you can repeat that process, right, over again. And that can be a process that is repeated over and over to now having the multiple amount of properties that you may have. And now we know what comes with it. You just talked about taxes, but it also, there's a benefit with the taxes, right? The tax write-offs that you get, the tax breaks. So then in one hand, it's a matter of you have capital here. Now you got this real estate. The real estate now is allowing you to actually keep most of your capital because the write-offs. So that now puts more capital in your pocket. Your portfolio is growing, and then you can utilize it, so on and so forth, right? So these are two ways that I think people can really jump in. Now, there's a few other ways I would love to talk about, but I just want to tap in on when you start saying as a single woman or so on, okay?
No, I appreciate you talking about that because it does apply to everyone, and I agree with you on that. How long, do you mind if I ask you a personal question before I ask you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How long have you and Beige been together?
Well, we've known each other for a long time, so 10 years, and we've been married for 6.
So the story that she shares, and I believe that you were probably on the same stage when she moved from Florida to California with $200 to her name, and it was going to require $300 of gas, and everyone was saying that she was crazy. Did you know her at that time?
No, we didn't know each other personally, but our story is so funny and amazing because where she was born in New York was around the corner from where I lived, and I knew her brothers. So the story was literally as two people walking two different paths, but ended up meeting many years later. Make sense?
It does. And the reason I ask that is you seem to be the kind of man that doesn't mind taking risks and you like more of a courageous lifestyle. I mean, what you're doing takes courage. And I was wondering if that was part of your appeal because you do a talk on finding the right woman. And so I am interested when you were thinking about moving in a relationship with your wife, did you find her courage to be something that was interesting to you? Was it a character thing? What was, I mean, obviously she's beautiful, but when you find a relationship with someone, are you looking for those qualities of courage, of taking risks? I mean, you mentioned the concept that when you were talking about things that hold people back, and one of the things that she talks about is a lot of people told her she was crazy, you shouldn't do that, you don't have enough money, and she did it anyway. Was that something that was appealing to you because you had that same kind of character?
Well, I think essentially it wasn't something that I knew of at the time. So I'll be transparent with you. It's just it's really black and white with me. Beige and I, we met many years ago at a private cigar lounge, right? And a buddy of mine said, "Hey man, come on out, come on out." I didn't want to go anywhere. I've been going through a lot, and so on. Her friend said the same thing to her, "Come on out." And we met at this lounge, and how we met, it was just a matter of I was sitting at the bar, minding my business, just chatting with the bartender because I didn't want to fraternize and move around. And Beige came to the bar to purchase her a drink. But what happened is that here it is, you got this lady beside me, and she slips her card at the on the counter and said, "I can buy my own drink." So it was a bit abrupt. So that means someone was actually trying to speak or talk to her. And so I'm sitting there, and then from the side, I said, "Wow, I wouldn't want to be that person," right? So I don't want to be that person. And then she said, "Excuse me." I said, "Wow." I said, "I wouldn't want to be that person who would annoy a lady, and now she has to come to the bar." But all this time, I haven't looked at Beige. I was just, facing the bartender, right? And then she heard the accent and she said, "Oh, you're West Indian." I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Oh, wow, I'm West Indian as well. My heritage, my background is Jamaican." And I said, "Oh, wow." So we're having this dialogue. And then I then turned and said, where's my manners? My mom taught me better. My name is Boston. And then she introduced herself. Her name is Beige. And we sat there in this place where they came out to obviously have fun and just had dialogue, right? We just had dialogue. It was just conversation. And we talked for about 30 minutes. And then I asked, "Can we exchange numbers?" She said, "No, you give me your number." Right. And I said, "Okay, let me grab a pen and paper." She said, "No, no, 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 no. You can tell it to me." Now, I remember the days when you tell a person a number and they remember it. But in my opinion, gone are those days because everyone has a phone, right? So she took the number. I repeated it twice. She memorized the number, recited to me, and then after a little while, she excused herself to go to the restroom. At that time is when I fully took a look at the woman I was talking to, right? So what essentially happened, we built a relationship where, because I told her I was into real estate and different things, and it was more like a mentoring relationship, just having dialogue. She bought property, she buy and holds, and I fix and flip. So we were just having dialogue, and I believe I fell in love. And I told her, she said, why do you like me? I said, "I fell in love with your brain. I fell in love with your brain." I didn't know the story as of yet, right? It was more that, wow, I have great dialogue. I'm having great dialogue with this woman. And I just love the way she thinks. She's literally about, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I will execute. There was never a dull moment in sense of, I can't do it. It is always, it is going to be done. It will be done. There, she doesn't, I'm not trying to do anything. It is done, right? So I was in awe of like, wow, okay. I like the way she thinks. She's about getting what she needs to get. So one of the things I talk about is when you meet someone, I don't believe in 50-50. I believe in 100-100. I think each individual are whole. So when she came to me in our meeting, she was at 100. And I had gone through a process that had brought me there. So I think that meeting was perfect. And that's how come we started that journey.
That's a really fascinating story to me. I like what you just said. You said that she said it is done, and you seem to be the kind of man that really believes in taking action. So it seems like you both have like minds.
Yes, I truly believe that. Paige, I would call her. I said, Paige, you're the strategist. I told her, I said, look, you're the strategist. I'm the executioner. She's gonna jump at it because I'm an analyst. I got to analyze everything. So sometimes you might take too long analyzing, right? And something great may pass you by. So Paige is already going to have all the research done according to what the research she needed to do. And then when she said, okay, this is where the target, hey, this is the bullseye, I'll jump in, look at everything, and I execute. So it works well, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna give you a statement, Boston. And we've heard this statement a lot before, but I would like to know how you have changed some of the people you've hung out with if you were to take this statement into your own mindset. And here it is. You become like the 5 you hang out with. You become like the 5 people that you hang out with. I'm interested in knowing, have you changed any of your friends over the years based on deciding differently who you want to hang with and why? If you don't mind sharing that with us.
That's a great question. And I don't mind. I don't mind at all. I've always had a yearning for greatness, and that happened from a very young age, right? But if we fast forward to where you're talking about changing friends, right? I built an amazing organization when I came from New York City to Atlanta, back in 2007. I was a mortgage lender. We were partners. Our partnerships, we had First Capital Home Mortgage in New York, and we had about 65 branches. And, the markets, things were happening. You remember the '08 crash, right? Mm-hmm. But when I came at the end of '07 and I built some relationship that was, at the time, I consider amazing relationships, right? With some gentlemen. And we, everyone, real estate businessmen, and they were effective in what they did and what they do. And we built an amazing thing. We did a lot of deals in Atlanta, developed neighborhoods and different things like that. But there was something missing, because the level to how they dealt behind the scenes, right, that I had no knowledge of, that started to catch up with us, started to paint a picture that I didn't want to be a part of. But I was so locked in on the fact that we will execute and make things get done that I thought this is a brotherhood, right? Here we are built up a value that's so powerful, $100 million, as a matter of fact, with real estate development, right? And here it is that I went into that season that Paige came into my life. And so much also was already happening with these gentlemen. And I remember Paige saying to me, she said, what do you need to create your own thing instead of having to suffer through this? She said, because since I've been around, I realized that you've brought these ideas to the table, and everyone will take what you brought to the table and run with it. But then the benefits for you is negative instead of positive. So that very moment, we made some decisions that I had to walk away from everything. And I kid you not, when you said you believe people tell stories with, financial wealth people go through. It's a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
People believe because you've achieved XYZ that you stay there. And what they don't understand, I tell them, is the same way how the trade markets operate. You know what I mean? That EKG machine that people look at and see that waves going up and down. I said, that is the wave of life, period. Right? So there's going to be what we call a higher high in trading and a lower low. And guess what? We all end up there. It's just what we put in place as a safety net to really catch us. Does that make sense?
It does.
And I literally had to change these guys out. And honestly, it was one of the hardest things that I had to do because I fell on my face and I walked away from everything. I didn't want anything. I didn't want to split any properties. I didn't do any of it because my walk at that time also is that I also had reconnected. You know, my mom, she grew us up in the church, and then I strayed away. I made money and I thought it was all me. It's all me. There's nobody more powerful than Boston. That's what I thought when I was younger. And I got some rude awakenings, right? I got some rude awakenings. And so at that time, I was on a journey, a self-learned journey with my relationship, my spiritual relationship. So I walked away and I left everything. And here I am, got the home, walked away, left everything. I have this amazing woman, this child, and I got a lot of debt. And it's like, what am I going to do? And on top of it, that same amazing woman gave up her condo and said, I'll move in with you. And then she was to take a trip to Europe for about a year, right? And I said, I don't want my lady to go abroad and spend a year as my lady. If anything happens, then I have really no claim. I said, we've been dealing now for a while. I said, but a husband have a certain power and a wife has a certain power. And I kid you not, we decided to tie the knot. And my prophet, my pastor, married us in the ministry, but it was very close, just him, the first lady, and us. There wasn't no family members. It wasn't broadcast. It wasn't anything, right? And here I am in turmoil. Things are going crazy. And the only one person who said to me, listen, don't you worry, I got you. And it was so big for me because no one has ever got me, because I'm always getting everyone. You know, I'm always taking care of everyone. I'm always providing for everyone. So that switch up of having to leave what could have caused me problems, because most of the guys ended up in situations that they shouldn't have, and battling over properties and money, and so much have happened with that in the past. So I walked away at the right time. So yes, I had to switch it up. So when you're talking about the people that you're around, you become the 5 individuals that you're around. What has happened is that because I made that switch, I invited the right people that came over time into my life that was not only successful financially, but was successful spiritually and mentally. That was more of a concern to me. And I believe it has helped me on my journey and still helps me on my journey as a student moving forward.
That's a really powerful answer.
Thank you.
You know, Boston, I think the way you talk and the way you exude yourself, even when you were going through that metamorphosis, I would imagine that you were still proclaiming certainty and courage.
You know, I'll be honest with you, I was the only person. I'll share something very personal with you because, and that's a great question that you asked. I was scared. I remember saying to my wife, I said, this is really scary for me because I've always had a team, because I believe a team can do more than what one can do, but it depends on your team, right? So here I am out here by myself. But then I realized, no, well, I got the support that I need, right? And so in that time, once I knew and believed that, okay, wow, this is all I need, then I started to push through. Now, even with pushing through, I still had the fear about, but I had to proclaim different, you know, because on my mirrors, we have our written affirmations. We're saying it every morning. We've been doing something for many years now that we call VAMP. So we VAMP every morning, which is visualize, affirm, meditate, and pray. We do this every day, and we've been doing it for years. So it has been such a great thing that has gotten me through the process. And because of that, I always feel like anyone can go through the process and come out on the other side in a way that will be successful for them. So don't aim for the success. Don't aim to win. Just focus on the process. Make sense?
It does. I want to see if you find yourself in the story, and which one are you? All right, you ready? All right, here we go. So I have a friend named Kevin. He's very, very extremely successful, and he makes movies primarily about African-American men. He's white, though. And we were in a business together. It was an MLM. You're familiar with those, multi-level marketing. And I just happened to get involved in it. And he said, I'll give you an audience of 10,000 if you succeed in the first 90 days. Well, I succeeded greatly in 89 days. I became a very, very good trainer for this company. I don't do it anymore. But I remember in about week 3, I had people parking up and down my driveway, down the street. My husband became like the person that was parking all the cars. It was overwhelming how many people. I had 50 to 60 people in my home at a time at these meetings. And Kevin would drive in from Florida. We didn't talk on the phone very much. He has a happy marriage. I have a happy marriage. And we decided at the beginning it would just be primarily a business relationship. We didn't share much emotionally. So it's very unusual. But I remember texting him, crying that night. I was in my bed. My husband was traveling. And I said, Kevin, I'm overwhelmed. I can't keep track of all these people. The business is growing so fast. And I'm leaving way too many people behind. Because there were so many people, Boston, that weren't succeeding, and I kept trying to save everybody. And he very matter-of-factly said, Lael, I don't remember how many, I think he had a couple 100,000 people in his business. And he said, Lael, I have this many people in my business and I don't turn around. He said, every time you turn around, you're trying to save people that don't want to be saved. He said, you've got to keep moving forward. And he gave me the story by text of Lot's wife, how she thought, well, maybe the land isn't that bad. And she turned around, she turned in her pillar of salt, and her husband kept walking forward.
Right.
So I am the kind of person that feels some guilt when I have success because of those that I've left behind. And I'm wondering, which one do you find yourself in? Are you like the Kevin, or are you more like a Lael that you're constantly turning around trying to save people? Or are you more like Kevin, which is, if people have the opportunity to be successful, and I'm going to move forward no matter what, come with me or don't come with me. He said, you can't save people. You can't make people want to be successful. Which one would you describe yourself as? And how do you get to be that person?
You know, that's an amazing story, just overall what you shared, because everyone on that journey goes through this, what you just gone through or what you have gone through, right? And I gone through it as well, understanding the affiliate or the multi-level marketing platform, right? I've always thought that though people frown on that space, it is one of the greatest space there is in life. Now, why? Before I go into that answer for you, why is it one of the greatest? Because it is the concept of, people might think it's hard to keep you keep what you kill, right? It is how our founding fathers dealt with finding the United States of America, right? You go out and you have to put in the work. And when you put in the work, then you get the reward. You understand? And then when you do that, you now have a blueprint to show others. So now you create duplication. And that duplication will allow someone else to do the same thing. So I think people don't understand when they look at the USA, it's called these United States because it's the states, the colonies united to become where we are, right? Does that make sense? So now to go into your answer is, I was like Lael at one point, right? It was a matter of that's who I am. Beige understood it, but she was actually on the opposite side. You get me? She was like, so I was, I was trying to force what I see for them upon them when they don't see it, right? And they say a mentor will see some things, but then you as the mentee have to see and feel that way as well, right? There need to be a connection, right? And so I was on the Lael side in my early time of, well, wow, I want to bring everyone, I can't leave them behind. And I realized suddenly and quickly, and if you call a few years quickly, right? Because I kept pushing. And because I had Beige on one side saying, you're taking a little too long, you're spending all this time. Because here's what I did. I spent more time convincing them, bringing them in, because they loved what they were hearing and how we talked for that time. They came in, but then guess what happened? They quit not too long after, a month later, whatever it was. And I'm distraught. Oh my God, why? Oh my gosh, why would they do this? But don't they see the potential, right? So I've gone through that process. And at this juncture in my life, I understand the position of Lael, and I bring it in the forefront in the beginning with an individual, but I make sure that they understand this is where we are. And if you do not see the value since you came to me, then we got to keep moving, right? So now I am on the opposite side, if that makes sense.
So you're more like a Kevin.
Yes, I'm more like a Kevin now. Yes, ma'am.
You're more like a Kevin.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. It took some time to get there, right? Because I'm always figuring, no, let's bring them along. And because that's my personality, to try to help everyone. But I've learned that if they can't see, right, where you're trying to take them, and they're not willing to, then they will only pull you down, because you got to get there first to be able to bring them, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yes,
Do you mind
ma'am.
if I talk to you about a color thing? Are you okay with that?
I mean, yes, absolutely.
Okay. I
I'll
appreciate you giving me some permission. I was coaching a man, what's today? Thursday? Yesterday.
Mhm.
A really good looking, successful African-American man. And he was sharing with me that he allowed a car to be repossessed because it was a beautiful car. It was a really, really nice car. This is years ago. And I said, well, what allowed you to let someone take it? And he said, well, I just didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I said, well, why not? He said, in my culture, he said, especially Black men, we don't talk about financial problems. And I said, well, why is that? He said, I was too embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to talk to my dad because my dad thought I had it all going on. My friends thought I had it going on. He said, and then one day he came out, his car was gone. How do you, because what I notice about you, you've got a lot of humility, and you're willing to talk about some times in your life that didn't go so well. But I think that's different, because I have many Black men that I work with. You're different in that regard, that you're willing to share your stories about financial hardships, losing everything, walking away. Why can you do that and so many others? Is it a cultural thing? I'm really genuinely curious that men don't want to talk about financial hardship. And why is it that you're okay talking about that? Because I like that about you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But to answer what you just said, in my opinion, culture and race is two different things. I think people get caught in that space too often, right? So I don't think it is a race thing. It is a culture thing. And culture represents whether you are light skin, brown skin, mulatto, blue, green. It's the culture, meaning the atmosphere in which someone was brought up, the information that was passed down upon them, that allow them to suppress certain things that has happened in their environment. And that goes through every human being that is on this planet. So when I hear that, I always, one of the teachings I've always give to my daughter and my son, I always tell them, so listen, don't you ever get caught in the position of worrying about whether it's a light skin or a brown skin or whatever thing. Understand that you're an individual. You're a human being, right? And that is what you should stand for. Now, your environment, a lot of the times, can dictate who you are, but not who you can become. See, a lot of times we're stuck on, wow, things are so bad. So when you get to the place of where statistics have shown, well, wow, these individuals, why do they suffer with this, right? I find if they interview enough people, they will find that it's a culture thing, and culture not representing a race, but representing individuals who has gone through this process, right? And when you start talking about the brown skin race, and that's just how I talk. I don't do the, I don't think you're white. White is not, this is white. This is white. Let's be clear about it, right? So I find that people, they have it wrong, right? So I just feel like it's not something that I should address in terms of, oh, well, you're white, I'm black, I'm this. Listen, here's the thing, you're a human being. So let's talk about that culture, that behavioral pattern. That comes from that environment to where these men feel that they have to be so strong, their concept of what strong is, to not actually share the information or the turmoil that they're feeling, the love that they're feeling. They don't share it. They don't express it. So with everything happening, it's boggled down and held on to. So now no one can help you if you do not share information. You don't know how you can be helped. So it's been so prevalent in these inner cities, whether the culture is of Latino, whether the culture is of Caucasian, whether the culture is of African American, right? It happens because of that mindset and what has been put on them based on the environment that they have been brought up in. That would be the answer that I will give you.
That's a really powerful answer. And you know, Boston, I think you could do a really powerful talk on that.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
I really do. My
Wow.
dad was a dermatologic surgeon, and he was a German immigrant raised exceptionally poor.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up, my mom was an alcoholic, and my father used to spank her when the checks would bounce. I was terrified when we didn't have enough. We lived in a huge house, it was a block long, but they were broke. And my father never shared anything that was going on with anyone. We finally got a family therapist, but when he died, a few years before he died, my mother said that they didn't have any money, that they were broke. And I'm like, how can that be that you're broke? And I flew a financial advisor in to meet with my father. My mother called me. Now, I was sending them money, if you can believe this, sending them money, flying a financial advisor in. And my mother called me. She goes, oh my God, I still remember it. We're millionaires. I said, Mom, how did you not know? And she said, well, your father was paying triple mortgage payments. He had $1 million chair because he wanted to have his name at the hospital. He had 3 or 4 insurance policies because his mental mindset was, I will never be broke again. He didn't feel safe when it came to money because his father was so poor. We never had a worker in our house doing the electricity, or we had a person that would clean once a week. But other than that, us kids mowed the yard. Us kids raked the leaves. We painted that house, you know, weekend after weekend. And I remember just thinking, how can someone not know their financial status? And you talk about that. You have a topic that you deal with. You're talking about dealing with financial pressures. And my father never learned how to deal with financial pressures. He would become violent and in a rage when there wasn't enough at times. How do you suggest that people learn to become resilient to the financial ups and downs financially in life?
Well, look at the age we're in right now. We're in such a technological age, an information age, right? People like yourself and I who might be middle-aged, right? We we have knowledge of it and we can become really good, but the youths of today have even more skill in this technological space, right? And information is available for everyone. Your choices is what makes you or break you, right? The information is here. So for one, I would say you need to seek the information, right? When you pick these things up, right? If you don't watch television, we don't watch television, right? I haven't watched TV in about maybe 10 years, my wife about 15, right? But when you pick these things up, you got about 16 pages open when you go to Instagram or these different things, or 16 screens. So you're seeing all these different things, but it's still a matter of the choices that you make. So someone getting financially savvy, it's a matter of, one, I always say to people, you have to be ready for the change. What change are you seeking? Because have you been hit hard enough to now say, well, look, things are too rough. I need something better. And if you are professing and feeling that you need something better, what happens is that in our negative moment, in our wanting moment, the things that we are negatively constantly screaming of come into our physical. The things that we are professing that we need to change come into our physical. It's just the laws, right? You will start finding that, well, give you an example. I want this car, I want this car, I want this car. But guess what? Now you start seeing more of those cars, right? So when you're talking about financial, I say financial literacy, I say that we have to become, get into the receiving mode. The receiving mode to say, well, look, I want to create this change. I want this in my life. I want to be better at knowing how to manage my money or manage my paycheck, manage my books a lot better. And then those things are going to start showing up for you. Now, people may say, what do you mean? How does those things show up for you? Well, conversations may come about, hey, have you checked out this channel? Information is free on YouTube. We call it YouTube Academy, right? Information is free. Now, you may not get everything down to the T, but what happens is that the information, it's free, that you can literally say, okay, instead of me looking at something that's going to make me laugh right now, I want to look at something that will allow me to absorb proper information that can take me to another level. So again, as I started, it's based on your choice. Right? Your choices are going to make or break you. What are the choices in terms of you wanting to become better financially? And when you start seeking that, right? When you start seeking that, the question is ask. 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 It's so powerful when you look at ASK. The same concept for those who may run from the biblical term, ASK, ask, seek, knock. That's it. Ask, seek, and knock. Are you in receiving mode? I got to YouTube. Now I'm learning. Wow, YouTube, they're telling me I want to learn this. How do I become a better financial planner? You pull it up. YouTube have the information. And then you take it further because you go down a rabbit hole with information that now can lead you to books. And once you start learning about the self-help and the financial books for dummies and so on and so forth, that's information that you're allowing in because you made the decision to move in that direction. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm going to open it up, but I'm going to end my part with telling you what I like about you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know why I keep saying that to you. I just want to make sure you're ready. What I like about you is something that I find very unusual because I interview a lot of very successful people.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
One thing that I find, I may be looking at them, but I may be wondering what I'm going to have for dinner at times. Because sometimes what they have a tendency to do is they talk at us. They come in over us with their wisdom. But that's not really what changes people. From a biblical perspective, Jesus always came underneath people to create change. He came underneath people to help them see their potential. Don't you want some water for me that'll never run dry? I've got some water that'll never run dry. Why don't you sit at the back of the church and I'll move you to the front?
Absolutely.
But what I find with many times with successful people is they forget that humility is what moves people. Transparent stories about struggles and overcoming, how to get back on your mark. Those are the greatest kinds of stories that I hang on to, not how successful people are, not how many millions of dollars they have. It's the fact, for example, you shared about loss, having to leave friends behind, being willing to choose your wife. You know, I have this vision in my mind of some of your friends not liking your wife because she's a strong, beautiful woman, and some of them challenging you with your choice and you having to stand up for your choice. Usually I'm right when I have these insights, but that's what I imagine happened to you.
You are
You
right.
had to stand up for your choice and leave some of those people behind. So you have a lot of strength of character because you're willing to come underneath people with your humilities to create change and inspire people to be different. That's what I like about you, Boston.
Well, I truly appreciate hearing that. I think it takes time and it's a process in life to actually go through. And I'm a student in the process. I don't think I've gotten there yet. I don't think I will ever get there. Right? It's just a process because, you know, the minute I believe I start to feel too big of this person and big headed, then there goes that pin to pop that balloon. Right? So I'm humble because I believe that in order to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. And people hear follower and they think, I'm not a follower. Well, there is greatness in followership. And you got to understand that there cannot be two generals on the field at the same time on the same team, right? So when you looked at biblical principles, let's look at the fact that you had Moses and there was Aaron, and you needed Aaron, to help with holding up the hand of Moses while the battle was going on, right? But you got to think about it. Aaron at the time didn't know he was going to step into that space when Moses left, right? So you got to be a good follower. You got to understand followership and you got to be a student in life. And it's a process and you will always be learning something. And I'm hoping that you can be in receiving mode when you are moving through that process. And I pray every day to be that because it's the roughest thing because I'm boisterous. I love to have fun. And sometimes when you're boisterous and my wife would always say, oh my gosh, you and your New Yorker. And I told her, I said, New Yorkers are sweet people. We're just to the point. It's just that people are saying, you're talking so fast. I said, no, you guys are listening slow. But I am humble for that. So thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Lee, do you have anything you'd like to add? Julianne, would you like to ask Mr. Boston a question?
Hello, Mr. Boston. How are you this evening? I'm leaving my camera off. I'm sorry, apologize. I'm eating dinner right now, but listening to the way you articulate your message is very inspiring to me. I am in, I would say, a journey of entrepreneurship where I have believed the vision, believe everything that you say. I'm like, yes, I 100% agree with what you're saying and how you're saying it. Our energy either propels or it attracts. And when did you find your voice? What was it that, like, that aha moment, like, I know I'm standing in my purpose? What was that time? If I missed it, I apologize if you said it before.
Oh no, thank you for asking the question, and it's a great question. And I'm always saluting entrepreneurs when I speak with an entrepreneur because it's an amazing thing. People don't know the actual effort and courage it takes to step out to be an entrepreneur. Sometimes people just say, oh, they're just trying something, but we're not trying, we're doing, right? So I truly appreciate that. And no, you didn't miss anything. I never answered or said anything about it. So, and it's a great question. I think since I was younger, I will always talk a lot. And so, you know, I would always hear my mom's favorite slogan was always, shut your mouth and go read a book, right? It was always, yo, you're talking too much, go read a book. You should be a barrister at law, meaning become a lawyer, right? And that was almost the direction I was going to study law years later. But I talked so much, I would always hear you just talk, right? And she would go read a book, go read a book. And it was one of the hardest things as a youngster. You're like, go read a book, go read a book. You're always frowning, read a book. And who was going to tell years later that I would be reading a lot of books and studying in a way to elevate myself to learn more. So I'm addicted to learning, but I believe I was hearing along the way that, you know, you're doing this real estate thing, but your gift is to teach. And I would always be like, whatever. And then, you know, I'm personal training when the markets crash because I love fitness and health. And they're like, oh, but the way you deal with people, you know, people will come in different walks of life and, you know, your gift is to do this. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But not until I met my wife, being that she's an established author and she studies so often, and it became more of a challenge of between her and my daughter, who's reading the most books. And so she would look at me and she would say, look, your gift is to deal with people in such a way that they will receive what is coming from you because it's coming through you by a power bigger than yourself. And you know, at that time, I was in my growth at the ministry back in 2013. I was in my growth process, and I was still trying to. I don't really know how this is going to work. And to be honest with you, though, I look at those times as it was a practice. All those years was a practice, being constantly boisterous, constantly speaking, talking to people, and they're okay, well, you just talk a lot. But then it became, wow, he don't just talk a lot. What he's saying makes sense. So when I found it originally, when I realized that, wow, this is where I need to be, I truly can say it's I can attribute that to knowing my wife, having my wife, and her really instilling in me to say, listen, honey, go with what is given to you, what is freely. Everywhere we go, it's so easy for you to connect with people. Embrace that which you are. And so I would say that was possibly maybe the last, maybe about 7-8 years ago, when I really dived into, well, wow, I'm going to hone in on this and I'm going to train myself to be better. And when I say to be better, not because I need to learn how to speak well, but I've always been reading to be able to enunciate correctly, but train myself to be better in terms of the information that is coming in from me. I need it to make sense for someone else. So how it's delivered, I don't leave it up to me. I leave it up to the creator to work through me. But in regards to the information, I want to just study and constantly take it in. So that would be my answer to you, if that helps.
Thank you. Dr. Lee, are you there?
I am. Can you not see me?
I could see you, but I didn't know if you could hear me.
Yes, I can see you.
Would you like to close out and thank Mr. Boston for being here with us tonight?
Yes, I will. It was just, I thoroughly enjoyed you. And even when I had to step away for a second, I was still listening. It was just awesome and so powerful, especially that word ask. I always say that one of my messages is the power of asking.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I've learned to do that. And so Dr. Morat, I do not want to close out without you saying something if you want to say something. And Ms.
No,
Trail.
not this evening. I enjoyed the presentation very much, Mr. Boston. Well, no, not tonight. Okay.
Okay. All right, Ms.
Thank
Trail.
you.
Okay. All right. We'd like to make sure that our audience that's on the podcast with us is given an opportunity to say something, but we are on, like I said, we're live streaming. Should be able to see us on Facebook on my page, Dr. Lee Lewis, or Women of Wealth magazine. So we're somewhere there. And next week, we'll be on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, about 8 platforms. And right after that, we're going to connect with a podcast show. And with the actual podcast show, it's not the visible one, you get to listen. For instance, someone would be able to listen to that message, Mr. Boston, over and over and over. So what I found out, you simply have to grow. You start something and you work with it for a while, but you must enhance it, enlarge it in order for it to grow. You have to water it. So we're going to be on about 8 platforms, starting next Thursday. And the following Thursday, we'll be with another podcast company. So we're growing. Thank God. Thank God. Thank you, Leo. You are awesome.
You're welcome.
Tonight, as usual. I love to just sit back and watch her interview people. I know what's going to happen, and I enjoy it so much just watching her. So, okay, guys, this was so good. We went 15 minutes over time. Isn't that awesome?
Mr. Boston, thank you for being you, and we appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me, ladies, and you guys have a blessed and awesome night. And I hope to connect with you all again soon.
All right, thank you so
Come
much.
back anytime. Come
Thank
back.
you.
Just, say, hey, I can come on this week, because we are always looking for a guest. Always.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
No problem. All right. Bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.